But if you think about anything that you're creating in your life, right? Anything that where you're wanting to share something inside your soul that feels deeply true and authentic to you, and that feels in your heart like it has value for others. And now you're in the process of trying to translate that into a product or a service, something that you can share with other people, maybe even something that can make you money. Because a lot of times that's the hardest part is, right, how do we figure out how to do the things that we actually love to do, that we would do for free, and also turn that into something that can sustain our lives, you know, financially and materially. This has always been the greatest code that I've been trying to hack. Like, how the fuck do I figure out a way to get paid to do the things that I would do for free?
Welcome to the Deja Blu podcast, where we believe that living a life of magic can be the default. Join us each week as we playfully and authentically dive into the mysteries of life and explore what it truly means to be human. From spirituality, wellness, and all things taboo, we don't hold anything back. So without further ado, let's let the magic unfold.
Before we get into today's episode, I'm going to talk about today's sponsor, which is Becoming with a Q. They have just officially opened their Becoming Allies program. This is a 5-month online container that is going to take you to the depth of your soul and start to carve out from the inside out a true new blueprint of what it truly means to live a life of alignment on all levels, bringing in master teachers from all different walks of life to take you on a journey, illuminating and amplifying how you perceive yourself and therefore how you perceive the world, allowing you to truly walk from a place of abundance. If you have had an opportunity to watch the Becoming Blue documentary, which is on YouTube, you'll be familiar with the becoming process where Azrya Bequer interviewed me, and we continue to carve out my own individual becoming that has allowed me to be where I am today. And so this is a very meticulously designed, hand-curated container to support you to become everything that you are destined to be. All of the information you need for the program is in the show notes, and I would not walk, I would run to navigate your way around the Becoming website to learn a little bit more about the majesty that they are offering. I believe in Azrya Bequer and Benjamin Becker with my whole heart and soul. They have impacted me in infinite ways, and I'm truly excited and honored to introduce to you the Becoming Allies program. And now, without further ado, welcome to today's episode.
Hello, beautiful humans, and welcome back to another episode of the Deja Blu podcast. It is always a treat for me to be able to be in the presence of one of my best friends, because the effortlessness, the grace, the ease, and the immediate connection that is formed just by being in each other's presence, even without saying a single word, is so complementary to what it is that we're here to offer the world when we come together. So it is such an honor to be able to continue to reintroduce Azrya Bequer to the Deja Blu podcast, because she has been on the podcast multiple times, lacing her wisdom through many different facets of the same diamond of individual empowerment through vulnerability of sharing her unique story. She is an incredible author, public speaker, motivational speaker. She is also the guide and the co-founder of Becoming, which is a incredible living transmission and safe space and container for individuals to go through the transmutation process of really truly living a life of integrity and alignment, alongside her husband Benjamin Becker and their incredible, impeccable team of individuals that are genuinely here to be of service to the whole. She has been a massive inspiration into my life through her sisterhood and through her honest reflections, with the genuine intention of wanting to see the best for me. And I think that the majority of growth happens in the presence of those that really, 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 really care to see you in your greatness. And I have been gifted that over and over and over again by this woman's magnificence. She is an Aquarian soul that is always pioneering the future, while also simultaneously training herself every day to be 100% present with what's right in front of her. It's a beautiful, beautiful combination balancing act. So it is such a gift to welcome this pioneer, visionary, muse, mother, lover, wife, and everything in between to the Back to the Deja Blu podcast. It's Azrya Bequer. Hi, Mama.
Hi.
I like introducing you because I'm a big fan.
Yeah, if you ever need like a good side hustle, you know, like if the whole podcast thing doesn't work out, you could just record like hype up, you know, cheerleader style, self-confidence boosting audios for people, like custom ones, you know, and then people could just listen to that on repeat every day as their morning practice. Like Blue just like seeing you through her lens. This is like the ultimate medicine.
So there's such a thing as being a professional hype woman.
There is.
I'm here for that.
You would do well.
Just shift everything from this point forward. Well, the best part about it for me is, I have guests on the podcast that I don't know really at all. And I've just learned from what it is they put out into the world. And then I have guests on the podcast that have been massively pivotal in the evolution of my consciousness. And you and I have been journeying for many years. Our relationship has always been so deep and multidimensional. And no matter what crunchy we navigate through, we always come through to a deeper level of intimacy on the other side. But not only that, but a deeper level of self-knowledge and self-awareness around how we can show up better moving forward in each other's presence and forging the fire of being in the dojo of a relationship and only cultivating more strength on the other side of it. And those are the kind of relationships that, for me to be able to have you sitting on the golden hands and be able to introduce, it's like, words just will not justify enough the impact that you've had in my life. And so I just love to continue to weave with you. And as I have coined your term, which you originally created, media as medicine. It is going everywhere now, by the way. I hope you've noticed that everyone's saying media is medicine now.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, these things don't belong to us, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So something that's been really present for me that has been in intention recently, but I would say over the past, since the New Year's, has creating a narrative around what it means to live from a life from the outside in and the difference of living a life from the inside out. Now, we could also refer to this as dropping that 18-inch drop from the head to the heart, navigating the world from a somatic feeling of expansion over contraction. There's many different ways and terms that we could use for this. However, I've witnessed you as you have gone through the evolution of your journey over, at the last few years specifically, but just your general story of what it was like for Azrya Cohen, before she was Azrya Bequer, to live predominantly as a life from the outside in, and then going on this journey of actually starting to live based off of a feeling place. And that's easy said, challenging done. Simultaneously what the entire planet is going through right now. So I would love to hear your perspective of what does living from the outside in mean to you, and what does living from the inside out mean to you?
Well, I think living from the outside in is when we allow external circumstances to create internal validation, right? Or when the source of our conversation with ourselves around our sense of self-worth, our sense of accomplishment, is defined by external things. And we're really conditioned to do that from an early age, right? Even looking at how we get grades in school, well, you got an A, so therefore you get a cookie, and you get rewarded, you get celebrated, or you got a D, and so now the energy shifts and you feel like you've failed, and you're all of the reference points around you of the human beings that are, at this point in your life validating your existence are reflecting back to you that you did something wrong, that you should have done it differently or better. And so even I think it's just the source of the way that the entire system is designed, right? And when I say the system, like, let's talk about just the education system for now, which is one of many systems where there's systemic separation built into the very, the foundation of it. But it's this idea that I, as an individual, am supposed to be a certain way. And if I don't fall into that specific mold, then I'm not good enough, or I'm not doing it right. And so those who can fit into the mold receive the feedback externally, right, from the outside in, that they're doing a good job. And then those who can't seem to fit into the mold, even if they're trying, don't. And so when the external validation isn't there, and the internal validation, the ability to feel deep sense of peace and self-worth from the inside out, isn't cultivated because we have never been given instructions for how to do that, then there's a breakdown in identity that occurs, right? Because if I need you to externally validate me, and you don't validate me, or in fact you validate the part of me that doesn't feel like I'm enough, that feels deeply unworthy, because that gets validated a lot as well, right? I'm a failure. And so then that can start to become part of the narrative of our identity. And then that identity self-perpetuates. And then later in life, we wonder why no matter how much we achieve externally, we still feel so deeply insecure on the inside.
Mm-hmm.
Because we know that if that gets taken away, then everything crumbles. Now, living from the inside out is strengthening and nourishing the direct relationship to your own internal power that exists with or without accomplishment, with or without you doing anything, literally just through the power of your own breath. Like it's innate, right? Richard Rudd talks about this. Prosperity is a deep sense of fulfillment that comes from the inside. It's generated without anything external needing to change.
Mm-hmm.
And when you have that in place, then for sure you can create significant external things. You can also receive significant external validation, right? It's not like we're saying the right path is go live the monk life and, abolish all attachment to material things. And, that's not what I'm proposing. I actually believe there's a beautiful dance between the outside and the inside world that wants to happen. So much of my journey has been about trying to understand how I can translate what's in my heart into the world of form and matter so that other people can also experience it. Now, in the beginning of my journey, I was doing that largely fueled by the motivation of receiving the validation. And I wasn't aware of that so much, because there was also a lot of genuine passion woven into the things I was doing. For me as an actress, being an actress is kind of an interesting and unique example of this because you are the product, right? So most people go into a job and then their work is kind of the product, and then the work gets judged, and then a lot of times they identify with the work, but there's still a little bit of separation, right? Me as an actress, I was the product. So if I got rejected, if I didn't book the job, or if I got bad feedback after an audition, or if I went on set and I screwed up the scene because I didn't know my lines, or I, couldn't generate the emotion that I needed to generate in that moment, then it was like a very personal sense of failure.
Mm-hmm.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And so I think in some ways, the initiation of needing to find self-worth within without external validation was amplified because I spent so many years feeling the pain of rejection in my own body, like related directly to me and how I was showing up, how I looked, how I dressed, how I spoke, how I presented in auditions. And that feedback mechanism, it was so close and so personal that I think in some ways the gift of it was it cultivated a deep inner strength because I really did learn, I had to learn the art of being rejected.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's literally an art form,
The art of being rejected.
Yeah.
I would love to take that program. Right? Like sign me up for that course.
Yeah. Somewhere in my notes on my phone, I have a note. I don't know what it wants to be, but it's the art of failing flawlessly, which I also really love, which is kind of a similar idea.
And there's another that's reminding me of I did a live in the Fluorescent Sisterhood the other day, and I talked about the art of dying gracefully.
Mm-hmm.
There's also there's an art and a kink to the willingness to die.
Yeah.
Which is also rejection or shadow work or
ego death, for sure. Yeah, absolutely. And so I think just by the nature of me choosing this profession of being an actress and putting myself out there so vulnerably again and again and again, like it's never, things aren't just black or white, right? Yes, of course, there was a part of me that wanted validation. That's why I wanted to be a famous actress and I wanted to make it in Hollywood and I wanted to win an Oscar and I wanted all these things that I had been from the outside in conditioned to believe were what would make me worthy, right? So yeah, I wanted all those things and those were fuels for me. But then the other fuel for me was just my deep love for the craft of acting itself, which was really at the core a deep love for the human experience, right? For the full spectrum of the human experience. And the characters I played gave me permission to feel things I couldn't feel in my regular life. And so I had this opportunity to really explore the human experience within my own self. You can't be a good actor and not be connected to your own internal emotional state. And it was really interesting because I think my acting got worse the more I studied. Because again, I was looking for because I wasn't having the success that I thought I should have, and I think a lot of people move to Hollywood and they're like, I shall be famous in 45 seconds. I shall be scouted at Walmart and then everything will change, because we hear these stories.
Scouted at Walmart.
Yeah. And I literally, I think I may have shared this, but I moved to LA with $2,000 to my name that I had worked up, working my ass off, working for tips in a restaurant in New York. I had just finished my acting program in Germany. And I moved to LA and I had $2,000 to my name. And that was, get a car, rent a place to live, like buy food. And then there's not much left, right? So my first car was $600 off Craigslist. It was like a hearse, like literally like a Lincoln Town Car from 1986. They used them for hearses. They used them to carry dead bodies because they were like those
But instead of a dead body, you're just carrying the body of your old self.
Yes. The decaying corpse of my hopes and dreams. Exactly. Yeah. And I was working for tips, and I remember going to Target to buy an air mattress to live on because I didn't have money to buy furniture. And by the time I checked out of Target and I had bought the basic essentials and I had bought the car and I had rented a room in someone's apartment for 1 month, I was at $0. Like I had nothing left. And so even as I was going to the 99-cent store and buying my groceries there, like literally, in this, there was a part of me that would fantasize about sitting across from Oprah and sharing about my rags to riches story, and really believe deeply that this was going to happen for me, and that I had a unique gift and a unique talent to share with the world, and that the world was going to see it. And then when the world didn't see it, sure, did I book jobs here and there? Yes. Did I make it on some TV shows and film some movies? Yes. But it wasn't the breakthrough, right? It wasn't like the Oscar winning performance thing. And so as my logical mind was like, well, okay, if what I feel is so true on the inside, which is this gift that I have, this talent, isn't being seen and recognized by others, then maybe I'm actually not as good as I think I am. Maybe I need to be better, right? I need to work harder. I need to study more. I need to enroll into more acting classes and have more acting coaches. And I need to crack the code. I need to figure out why this is not working. And the more I did that progressively over the years, the more my acting suffered, because the more I got removed from the source of what I would say was my true talent, which was my ability to get out of my own way and just be present in the moment. Mm-hmm. That's what good acting is you get completely out of your own way and you allow the circumstances of the character's experience in real life to completely take you over. It's actually like a channeling experience. You're channeling. Yeah. Now, I didn't have any of that language back then, but it was really interesting. And so the more my acting suffered, the more frustrated I got, the less fun I started having, because I was so attached now to all of this outside validation from my teachers, from my coaches, from my managers and my agents, and, and how did I do? And I would audition, I would do self-tapes and I would rewatch them 10 times and then I would refilm and really just talk about getting in your own way. That was like a really, I think, powerful example of how to get in your own way. When the real raw beauty of what I had originally was where the real joy was. And when you're in joy, as you often say, right, you're the most magnetic version of you. Mm-hmm. But when you're trying to get it right, now you're performing and it's dead and it doesn't have the same aliveness and vibrancy. And so I guess most people probably won't relate to the acting metaphor because most people aren't trying to be actors who are listening to this. But if you think about anything that you're creating in your life, mm-hmm. right? Anything that where you're wanting to share something inside your soul that feels deeply true and authentic to you, and that feels in your heart like it has value for mm-hmm. others. And now you're in the process of trying to translate that into a product or a service, something that you can share with other people, maybe even something that can make you money. Because a lot of times that's the hardest part is, right, how do we figure out how to do the things that we actually love to do, that we would do for free, and also turn that into something that can sustain our lives, mm-hmm. Financially and materially. This has always been the greatest code that I've been trying to hack. Like, how the fuck do I figure out a way to get paid to do the things that I would do for free? Because I love them so much, Can I design a life like that? Or does it always have to be what society tells us, which is your hobbies are your hobbies, your passions are your passions, they're over here. And then you go and you make money doing the things you don't really want to do so that you can finance the things that you want to do. Mm-hmm. that's the paradigm that we live within, right? How many people really genuinely make money doing what they love to do?
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, living from the outside in, it was, I think this experience of being in Hollywood and then evolving from the actress identity to the screenwriter identity and the producer identity, and being like, okay, fuck you guys. I'm going to create my own roles. I'm going to write my own roles, because I also had a gift to write that I didn't even realize was there, which now I would say has become one of my greatest, sources of creativity.
Mm-hmm.
But it really started from desperation. It started from a place of, no one's going to give me the role, so I'm going to write my own role.
I remember seeing a video that you shared with me of an audition.
Mm-hmm.
And the way, I didn't see the man that was speaking to you, but the way the man was speaking to you was disgusting.
Yeah.
And it's the norm in Hollywood, specifically for actors and actresses that are just kind of not fully had made it yet, but are in that place of like, I'll do whatever it takes. And the way that you were spoken to was so condescending, was so sexist, was so greasy and demanding, and witnessing you shrink in that moment and just be like, oh, this is just the way that it is, which is the epitome of outside in. It's not listening to my own empowerment, not listening to my own truth, not having boundaries and saying, no, that's actually not okay to speak to me like that. And watching a powerful woman like yourself, that I know now to be one of the most fearless pioneers of claiming the reality in which you believe you're here to be of service to, and to witness that other iteration of a woman that's living from the outside in, and what that does to the vitality, strength, empowerment, and clarity of your voice is so relatable.
Mm-hmm.
So there isn't just necessarily, yes, okay, people aren't going to resonate with the actress role potentially, but it's more so about the symbolic arc of what the collective is navigating through right now, which is, do I shrink and silence? Or do I say enough is enough? I'm going to forge my own way, and it's going to be really tough and really confronting, but there's no other choice.
Yeah. The choiceless choice.
The choiceless choice at this point. Once it becomes a part of your awareness, then all of a sudden, it's the path that has to be walked.
Yeah. And I think the tipping point for me at that point in my journey was, there was a tipping point moment, and I remember it very vividly, where I had started to tap into this, this other way of looking at reality, this internally generated way of looking at reality. And it was through, baby steps initially, and having some profound experiences with some plant medicine and some psychedelics, and starting to remember like the truth of who I really am, beyond all of these masks that I had created to try and fit into these boxes of what I thought I was supposed to be, based on all of these other people's opinions of what I thought, what they told me I should be. And so I was like constantly contorting myself, trying to be something that I really wasn't. And so through my work, my inner work, shadow work, spiritual work, meditation, honestly, just a lot of time in stillness by myself in nature, start that spark of my authentic voice, my authentic truth started to come online. And so I started to taste the difference. And then I started to have, now I had contrast, right? Up until a certain, like there was a many years of the journey where that was just all I knew, right? Like the video you're referencing, me at 21 being yelled at by this awful acting teacher.
I was so angry at him. I just was like, who the heck do you think you are?
But that version of me,
power trip, outrageous.
That version of me had no other reference point. There was no other reference point. There was nothing to compare it to.
That's
it was just
how it
like,
was.
This is what it is. Okay, this is Hollywood. Welcome to Hollywood, right? But then a few years later, in my my mid-20s, there started to emerge this new reference point. And maybe if you're listening to this, you can relate to this, right? You've probably felt that same sense of like, oh wait, hold on. There's another version of reality that's available here. One in which love is the answer. One in which I feel deeply connected to myself, to the people around me, to the universe at large, where I can see the precious beauty and magic of every moment, where I feel infinitely sustained, where I feel like trust is just like my default setting, right? That we all catch those glimpses. And so I was starting to taste that. But there was still this massive gap between that version of me, the version of me laying at the park, looking into the sky, watching the trees for 2 hours and going into these very deep states of like, you know, almost like transcendence in a way where everything would just get really, really quiet and I would just be sort of floating. My awareness would be like floating. And that's where I was really starting to harvest like some very powerful truths about the nature of reality and the truth of who I am. So there was that version of me. And then there was still the version of me that was hustling in Hollywood, trying to make it all happen, working a job I didn't like or didn't feel in alignment with to make money to pay my rent. So there was this big gap that had been created. And that gap got massively enlarged when I had my first ceremony with ayahuasca in 2015, where the medicine was like just in an instant, just kind of, you know, pulled the wool off my eyes and showed me this timeline that I was meant to be doing something very different with my life. And that this actress identity was really just a stepping stone. Everything I had learned in Hollywood was important to help me hone the gifts of being a storyteller, but that the stories I was meant to tell were not other people's stories. I was not meant to create another psychological thriller. I was meant to tell a story about a new expression of humanity, a new narrative about what it means to be human. And in that ceremony, I had a very vivid vision of myself. And at the time I had long brown hair all the way down to like my waist. And I'd had it for years. And I felt I was really over it. Like I wanted to cut it. But my agents and my managers told me like, do not cut your hair. You won't be castable. We won't be able to get you in as many auditions because you're going to be too specific. You'll be too edgy. We need to keep you more girl next door so that you can fit a broader category of roles, right? And so for years, I didn't cut my hair because of that. And in that ceremony, I had a vision of myself with the haircut I have now. So short, super, super pixie, shaved on the side and like bleach blonde. And I came out of that ceremony and, you know, this was the tipping point that I mentioned earlier where I was just done letting other people tell me what I should or should not do with my own body, with my own vessel. And I think 3 hours after I left that ceremony, I booked the appointment. 2 days later, I was in the hair salon, chopping my hair off, dyeing it bleach blonde. I messaged my agents and managers and I was like, this is what's happening. If you want to drop me, go for it. You know, like, fuck off. I'm so complete. And that was in a way, that was a symbolic claiming of a whole new timeline, a whole new version of me that was like, I'm no longer going to just taste glimpses of this over here when I have time to go to the park, when I have time to meditate. I'm going to live this. This is going to become embedded into every molecule of my being so that no matter where I go, whether I'm at Whole Foods, whether I'm at the DMV, no matter how mundane the moment might be, I am anchored and stabilized in the knowing of the truth of who I am, which is an extension of life's intelligence, which is completely and intrinsically connected to the magic and the miracle of all that is all the time, no matter what. And that is where my self-worth started to be sourced from. And the power of that, you know, I talk a lot about magnetism. Well, magnetism is the direct byproduct of that tank being full, of those batteries being charged. And so in the beginning, again, there was still a lot of volatility because I would have like a ceremonial experience. I would work with a medicine and I would feel so charged. You know, I mean, you felt this, right? I just come out of those, like I'm flying high. Like I am so connected. I am so alert. I'm so present. I'm so in love. I'm so grateful. Like what could not be possible from this place? Everything is possible. And then inevitably, the spirit of the medicine starts to fade and life starts to get monotonous again and routine. And then all of a sudden you have a flat tire and then your mom is coming to visit and then
regular muggle stuff.
Your rent is due and you don't have the money and, you know. So then, yeah, there was a lot of highs and lows in those early years, and I want to speak into that because I think it can be easy to look at you and me and see this version of us that is like, oh, these people, you know, they figured out their shit and now like they're living in this almost otherworldly dimension, right? Where there's beautiful trees that are lit up like with fairy lights and there's golden hands and
paper mache mushrooms
and there's tiny mushrooms and This is just what their life is like all the time. No, well, the truth is we're on a set and it's well lit. And we have human challenges all the time. Before this podcast started and after this podcast will end, there will be many very human challenges that we will navigate that will at times have us on our knees, wondering if we're making it all up, you know? And I think it's very easy to forget that. And it's also, I think there's a lot of shame. At least I certainly felt that. I felt a lot of shame when I first started on my path, when I would forget the power of what I felt I knew to be true. So that disconnect, that gap I was talking about, right? When I started to slip out of the knowing and I started to fall back into the pattern of needing like the outside in external validation or letting external things really like get to me or really stress me out or just dysregulate my nervous system. One of the things that I started to notice is I would shame myself for that. It was almost like my spiritualized ego would be like, you're more evolved than this. What are you doing? Just meditate more. You know, just stop eating the potato chips. You know that you should be drinking the green juice. Like, what are you doing? And this voice that had been berating me previously in the outside in reality was now trying to berate me for not being more in the inside out. You know what I mean? It was crazy. Like, it's incredible how that starts to happen. Also something that I don't know if we talk about enough in this, on this path and in this work. Like, we can use the very tools that empower us to beat ourselves up even harder.
It's something that it was brought to my attention the other day during a fluorescence sisterhood call. I did a live in the fluorescence community, and a sister shared super vulnerably, just like it was so much courage in her share was, I look at your world, Blue, and I've seen you over the past decade, and I've seen you go from Charlotte to Blue and watch everything that you've created. And anytime I look at you, I've been feeling this like dread of comparison that I have not evolved or created the capacity in which you have. And I've made myself or shamed myself for it and telling myself I'm not doing enough or whatever. And I respected the share because of the vulnerability of being witnessed in a crunchier emotion in the presence of all of the sisters on the call directly to the person herself. So like straight off the bat, I take the personal lens out of it and just receive the courage of the sisters sharing so vulnerably. But also something that really dropped in, which I think is really important, is to recognize I wake up in the morning and sometimes if I've slept in or I haven't done my practice or I didn't go to the gym or I started my day with a cup of coffee before I've even drunk water, right? That I get into this, what are you doing? You're not doing enough. I thought we were evolved past this. You just did your 40 days of devotion and now you're not doing your practice anymore. And there's this spiritual hierarchy judge that still exists within my consciousness. And when she shared that with me, I just felt my humanness come online and go, no matter what it is that we accomplish, no matter what it is that we create, no matter what it is that we've unlocked within our ability to articulate some of the deeper workings of our own consciousness, that judge, if that still has the power, none of anything from the external is going to eliminate us from that voice. And I think that there's something so powerful about bringing our sacred shit, our sacred crunchy to the altar, to let it also have a sacred place. And it's in the liberation of us even talking about this and bringing this piece to the altar of this conversation that is allowing our humanness, no matter who it is that's tuning into this podcast or listening to this podcast, to allow our humanness to have a sacred purpose as well and to transcend this. Emily Fletcher called her inner Judge Judy. The Judge Judy that shows up and thinks that you're supposed to have it all together, which is actually continuing to perpetuate the judge that was present before we went through our awakening. It's just taken on a different hat.
And has more ammunition now because now there's, sorry, Sarah, chill. And has more ammunition now because now there's contrast, right? Now there's a comparison of, again, that I'm just going to call it that place of knowing, right? That place of connection, that place of aliveness, that place of gratitude, that place of inspiration, of feeling like the universe is communicating with you, that place of knowing, all caps knowing. And then the place of forgetting and getting lost in the riffraff, getting lost in the distractions, getting lost in the stimulation, right? The Instagram, the sugar, the caffeine, whatever the thing is for you. It is like, it's almost like a vacuum, right? It has a very strong magnetic pull that wants to just kind of like suck your life force into itself. And if you think about it, a lot of it has been designed for that very purpose. I mean, those of you who watch The Social Dilemma can see the social media has been designed to capture your attention, to capture it and to hold it hostage for as long as possible.
And they do a really good job at it. They understand the workings of our mind more than we do.
Absolutely. They know us better than we know ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's this constant, almost like, in some ways, it feels like you're swimming upstream because you're going against the current. The current of the collective energy is in this state of consumption and in this state of distraction and in this state of trying to get somewhere that's not here.
Mm-hmm.
And because we are energetic beings and we are connected to the larger whole, if the vast majority of the population is operating in that way and we choose to opt out of that way, well, it's almost like we're standing up in like, in a rapidly moving river.
Mm-hmm.
Think of it like that. Like the river is moving rapidly. There's a tremendous pull, gravitational pull. And to stand up and stand strong and not let the rip current take you, it takes a lot of energy.
Mm-hmm.
You have to counteract all of the forces that are constantly trying to pull you. And I think that's been a big part of what I've started to dissect and understand also as I've been designing this program for other people to go through their own process of stabilizing that knowing, is really understanding how to work with the energy body, with the nervous system. Like, it's not just a cognitive thing, right? I think that's what we've learned. And we talked about this on one of our last podcasts. You know, if it was as easy as putting some pretty pictures on your vision board, then we'd all be multimillionaires with six packs already, right? It's just not the case. So the cognitive, the mindset is one component. It's a crucial component, but it's just not the whole picture. It's only 15 or less % of the whole equation of what you're working with,
Mm-hmm.
right? So really understanding that the true long-term actualization of these moments that you might associate with peak states into your everyday life as a default reality, first of all, that takes time.
Mm-hmm.
And it takes consistency, and it takes moving through cycles of forgetting and remembering, and then watching those gaps between the forgetting and the remembering get shorter.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you've noticed that as well, where in the beginning when you forgot, right, and you fell out of your practice, it might take you 3 weeks, 3 months to get back on track. And now maybe it takes you 3 days or 3 hours,
Mm-hmm.
right? So those gaps get shorter and shorter and shorter
Mm-hmm.
until eventually you get so attuned and you become a master of this,
Mm-hmm.
where you can notice the tiniest little thing is starting to slip me out, and now I'm just going to click right back in.
Mm-hmm. This journey, I've noticed, is not about shit not hitting the fan. It's
No.
not about evolving past the crunch.
No.
It's actually will make it even more louder, because you can't get away with your own bullshit when you become self-aware. And so is that which was in a blind spot, that was sort of operating behind the scenes, that was sucking life force energy, but slowly over a prolonged period of time, but not super loud or obvious. And therefore I wasn't calling myself forward on it. Self-awareness is really just bringing that which was a blind spot into the field of view. Now, all of a sudden, when the blues bullshit shows up, I'm super aware of it being present because it's in my field of view.
Yeah.
So then it comes the journey of, do I create a mental overlay around shaming and guilting myself because I'm evolved past this,
Mm-hmm.
or actually recognizing that it's here to teach me something, and so it's got a sacred purpose. Now, the thing that is the work is how I respond to that that's in my field of view.
Yep.
So when I respond to it going, how could you? What are you doing? Shame it, suppress it, numb it, and then think that it's going to be transmuted, actually is not available as much as it would have been when I become tooled up of how I navigate it.
Mm.
So for example, the painting that is sitting behind you was a byproduct of 3 days of sadness and feeling disempowered and feeling like I wasn't sure which direction to take and why is this initiation presenting itself. However, what happened was I became curious to it as a student of the crunch, of allowing it to be curriculum, And then also recognizing that my alchemical process is to turn that which was unpainful into forgiveness into freshness into beauty. And so I forgive myself. I forgive the other person that's created the catalytic experience within my own consciousness, what is bringing up within me. From the forgiveness, then I turn it into a freshness. So I bring out the canvas, I lock myself in my room for 3 days, and then from the freshness into beauty, which then actually supports the alchemical process of turning a dense emotion into something beautiful. Now, it doesn't mean that the dense emotion did not present itself, but what I did with it is significantly different because I've tooled myself up over the evolutionary journey of waking up to my own potential.
Yeah.
And this is what you have exhibited in my reality is together we have been able to live together. We've been able to journey together through many iterations of ourselves. We've gone through many ceremonies, but the greatest ceremony that there is life and just time spent traveling around the world, being in situations where we're locked in a country for months. Like there's just so many different things that have happened. And yet in each other's presence, we've witnessed the tools that we've navigated the shadow emotions and then been able to actually share those tools to support us when these opportunities present themselves as they are opportunities for deeper self-awareness.
Yeah. And someone can look at that painting and not have any of the context you shared and be like, wow, Blue is this incredible artist. And then in their mind, they're imagining you, with birds circling your head as you paint with, opera music playing and you're having the best time. But the truth is that that beautiful painting was birthed from you facing your shit and actually working with the material in real time and choosing to do something with it. Not you being in this like incredible state of inspiration all day, right? You're actually alchemizing that sacred shit, as we like to call it, into something beautiful. And that's, the work is that, exactly as you said. And it's very easy, I think, because we live in a world now where so much of our engagement with our community, especially in the digital space, is, it's curated, right? Like what we choose to put out into the world, we're curating and deciding in any given moment what parts of ourselves are we choosing to share and what parts are we choosing not to share. And what I'm learning is there's a difference between being inspirational in a way that's relatable, where people can see themselves in me, and being aspirational to the point where someone might look up to me or think, this person's on a pedestal, but they don't necessarily see themselves in me because what I'm choosing to share is only the polished parts of my journey. I'm only choosing to share the painting, but I'm not choosing to share the journey of what it took to get to the painting, right? And it's something that I've had to learn as well because the artist in me always wants to put out things that are well produced and well lit and beautiful. And but my deeper why, my mission ultimately is to be a reference point for other people. I can't be a reference point for you if you can't see yourself in me, right? Even if I'm an inspirational reference point where whatever I'm embodying or exuding is something that you want to create more of in your life, I still have to build the bridge and share the parts of the journey, the crunch parts of the journey that help people click into the parts of it that resonate for them so that they can start to see that it's possible for them as well. And so I think it's just being very mindful in this age of, content creation and the creator economy. Like, what are the parts of our journey that we choose to share? And what is the responsibility that comes with only sharing the prettier parts? And what's the opportunity that comes with sharing the crunch? The raw, uncensored aspects of ourselves.
The data I've collected from my years of sharing on my Instagram stories and the beautiful relationship that's cultivated with my online community and the conversations that happen back and forth in DMs and those little moments of connection when they align, is that it's my vulnerability in sharing my suffering that people relate to the most.
Yeah.
And I do love to share moments of beauty and little snippets of inspiration. And that's really my intention for sharing on my platform is not, hey, look at me, look what I've activated and look how brilliant I am, but more so from a place of oh look, I'm super sad, and I've spent 3 days in my bedroom, but also I'm going to bring some humor into it and cover myself with some lipstick and be outrageously ridiculous, and also share the little things that I've cultivated. Well, ultimately, it's just a byproduct of keeping my inner child alive, which is available to everybody, and that's really the intention, is creating equality of availability. But whenever I've shared wow, this experience for me was extremely challenging, and a video of me crying in front of my altar because I made a commitment to 40 days of devotion of time lapses to create this accountability. And there's a day where I would rather not share that video of me completely sobbing at my altar, but also it would be an injustice to the transparency in a world of filters. And so to have shared that moment, this is when people reach out by the plenty. Thank you for giving me a snippet into the challenging experience, because I can relate to that, and therefore I can relate to your highs. Therefore I can relate to your wins. And that's the most important piece here, is the second we pedestal somebody else as if they have the answers or have access to something that we don't, or they're more evolved or more activated or more productive or whatever it is the second we unconsciously or consciously give our power away, saying that I don't have it within me too. And this is what it's going to take, because everywhere I look right now, people are purging.
Oh, yeah.
Systems are collapsing.
Yeah.
Systems that are founded in control. Anybody that's operating from some sort of validation from the outside in are in it, which is the majority of us.
Yeah.
And so can we create that bridge of relatability to go, hey, your sacred shit has a purpose and you're not in this alone, but it's going to require all of us. To start to live from the inside out, and to start to end some of the wars within our own minds, so that we can actually create the new foundation for the future generations to be able to actually live a life of truth, as opposed to constantly perpetuating and recycling distortion.
Yeah, well said. And I think we're in this really painful gap right now where, the gap that I shared about on the individual level, right? Between, call it my the life that I was living that was from the outside in, to then the life that was from the inside out in my own personal journey. That's also happening at a collective level in a massive way. There's systems are collapsing, as you said, right? What was defined as success is, a lot of holes are being poked into that. There's a tremendous amount of damage that we have done to our environment and continue to do, that we're now being confronted with in ways that we can no longer ignore. Politically, our systems are falling apart. It's a really challenging time to be human, and especially when you're wanting to build something that has a new source code, right? Like a new foundation that is anchored in love versus fear, or in connection versus separation. There's no instruction manual for that yet. So all of us, and you've called me a pioneer a few times in this conversation, but all of those of us who feel like we are here to forge a new way, we're having to build the plane while we fly it. There is no blueprint. There is no, this is how you do it. Look at all these 10 other people that did it this way. There's a real holy shit, I'm going to have to salvage what I can from the wreckage of the systems that are falling apart all around me. See what works, see which ingredients that I want to use and apply to the new thing that I'm creating. And then navigate the building of that new ship with all I really have is my own relationship to my inner voice and my own guidance direct from source to help inform how I'm going to do that. So in a more tangible, practical way of describing this, for many years, and when you and I first became very close, I was very much in this part of my journey where I felt like I knew why I was here. That had taken me a couple of years to figure out, but I had kind of really gotten clear. Okay, I know why I'm here. I know I'm here to invite people into this conversation of finding their knowing, unlocking the truth of who they are, and then living that not just in service to themselves, but to the whole. I feel like I received the instructions for how to do that on a, psycho-spiritual, emotional level. And I'm meant to create safe spaces for people to be able to do that work so that then they can feel empowered to go out and live their purpose in the world. right? Which by default will be in service to others because that's just what the planet needs right now. So I think it's very unlikely that anyone will have a purpose that really isn't in some ways in service to others at this moment in our collective journey.
Mm-hmm.
So my purpose was really clear. And then when I met you, I was in this place where I was like, well, I actually don't know how to translate this purpose into reality. Like I don't have business experience. I don't have financial resources. I don't know how to build systems and structures. And I know what I'm trying to build is big. I know it's meant to reach millions of people, but I can't use the sort of default world systems, right? It's not like I'm going to try and get on Fox News to share my message. I'm not going to use the default world systems that are already in place because they're not in alignment. So whatever platform I'm going to use to share my message, to share this information, to share these safe spaces will need to be designed from the ground up. Mm-hmm. They will need to be designed from the inside out. Mm-hmm. And so I was in this tipping point moment in my journey where I was really ready to claim that in a big way, and also acknowledging that I didn't have parts of the puzzle that I really needed in order to make that happen. Mm-hmm. And then Benjamin showed up in my life, and he brought a lot of puzzle pieces from his previous reality of making shit happen in the 3D, building significant things, right? Building grocery store chains and having, 3,000 square foot warehouses and hundreds of millions of dollars in revenue and thousands of employees. Like just from a very practical perspective, he understood how to build large things in the third dimension. But all of his blueprints were also anchored in an outdated paradigm. Mm-hmm. His way of doing all of those things largely was fueled by separation and fear, because that's just kind of how everyone was doing it, right? So his operating system, his perspective of how to do something like that also needed to go through a huge refresh and there needed to be a death of the modus operandi of like outside in that he was running his whole software on into inside out as well, right? So the first step became, okay, facilitating the process, helping facilitate and hold the space for him to go through his own process of stabilizing in his knowing, so that then together we could be this unit that could complement each other, that we could then actually bring into reality this vision that I had been shown years ago. And in my mind, because this is what the mind does when it projects into the future, that moment when it was going to come to life, when the money was going to be there, the resources were going to be there, when it was all going to start happening, was going to be this moment where everything was going to be perfect, right? Because that's how the mind works. Everything in the future is always perfect. Now I'm actually living that. I'm living the reality of that. I have the millions of dollars invested in my vision and my business. I have the systems and structures. I have the employees. I have the team. I have all the things that I had been manifesting for so many years. And, flashback to me Tuesday with my coach on a Zoom call, sobbing, because I feel so stretched in my ability to be a leader in this organization, in my ability to know how much to trust my own inner voice and how much to actually trust the voices of those that I've hired to guide me. Mm-hmm. And when there's a dissonance between those voices or those instructions or that information, it's deeply painful, because the very thing that I created everything from, which is trusting my own knowing, also now has to evolve into a new expression where I have to trust the knowing of others. I can't just trust only my own knowing anymore, mm-hmm. which is complex, right? We all have this utopian dream of collaboration and connection and building the new earth together with other people who are on the path. And that's all beautiful. And the reality of it is there's so much fear of, what if your knowing leads us astray? What if I lean into your knowing and we end up somewhere that we didn't want to end up, right? To steer the ship together versus being like, no, guys, I'm steering the ship and I'm going to tell you what to do, just more of the hierarchical model. But to actually all have a hand on the steering wheel and be like, we're doing this together. It sounds so beautiful in theory, but the reality, the practice of it is terrifying.
But it's this way. No, it's this way.
Exactly. Especially when you have millions of dollars on the line, right? Because that's the reality of like the organization we're building, the retreat center we're building. We're not only manifesting these safe spaces digitally, we're also manifesting them physically. Mm-hmm. So we're literally buying 30 acres of land, building a retreat center facility, like these are massive projects that are becoming very real. And there's a business component to these things where I don't have the lived experience because I've never done it. So everything is new. Everything is new. And all I can go off of is the opinions and the perspectives of people who have done it in an old paradigm.
Mm-hmm.
So the growth edge there, the challenge of that had me in tears with my coach, you know, snotting and sobbing and being like, I don't know what to do. And yet here I am living my dream life.
Mm-hmm.
I am living a dream come true.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And I still sometimes am on my knees, you know, wondering like how the hell I'm going to make it through the day.
It's one thing to dream big, create the vision board, send your orgasms out into the quantum realm to manifest what it is that you want to create, to write that thing in your new moon ceremony and offer it to the fire for transmutation so that you can anchor your dreams into a reality.
Yep.
And there's another thing, receiving it.
Yep.
And all that comes with that too.
Yep.
And it's so easy to idolize people online, to pedestal people that can articulate themselves in a way that seems like it's something that is important, or to actually dream that the future is perfect. But to receive everything that it is that we said that we want comes with its own initiations. And this is the power of staying present and staying in gratitude. Because the second we slip out of gratitude and we think that the grass is greener on the other side, is that we keep staying in this low-level loop or essentially high-level loop that is still the thing that perpetuated our suffering when we had no money. So the people that I have witnessed that have made millions of dollars but come from, I guess, that original point of unworthiness, that just is amplified by the amount of money they have, because money is just energy.
For sure.
So if there was, oh, I need to create X, Y, and Z in my bank account so that she'll like me, or so that I'll seem presentable, or so that I will be successful in the eyes of my parents, for example. And all of a sudden, $10 million comes in. Oh no, I'm afraid that I'm going to lose it. Or I'm afraid that if I make the wrong investment. And so it's so important to bring our awareness back into the present moment and to refocus our attention onto gratitude and to transcend the pedestaling idea that in some sort of future timeline, I will be happy. Because it's called in the shadow gene key of expectation. We can spend our entire life thinking, when I have the partner, when I have the business, when I have the millions, then I'll be happy. And it's an illusion. And it is a story.
And I would say that because our minds are sophisticated, I would say several years ago saw through the whole kind of like, okay, the happiness lives outside of me. It lives in a future moment. I saw through that. But in some ways, I think I replaced it with purpose. Like when I'm fully living my purpose, then XYZ, right? And so it's almost like a slightly more sophisticated or evolved expression of the exact same thing.
Of the expectation.
Of the expectation of something being different and then you're in that moment that was a future moment, and then it becomes the present moment, and wherever you go, there you are. You still have your shit. You still have your doubt. You still have your fear. Like I said earlier, though, the stabilizing back into the knowing, right? Those blips, like I use this analogy of a tightrope walker. So you have, imagine you're walking on a tightrope. And it requires so much presence and focus, right? To stay steady, to take, each step has to be immaculate, perfect, complete awareness, complete presence, no distraction. And then that's the knowing, right? That state that I'm talking about is the knowing. And then there's something that pulls you out of it. And initially pulls you out of it so far that you fall off the whole tightrope. You have to climb up the ladder again, start all over. That's how long it takes to restabilize. But as you get more pristine in your practice, those little moments, you can catch them much faster. So eventually, maybe, that step you take, there's a little wobble, but you catch it before you even fall, and you course correct it. Now you're back in the pocket. And I think that's a good way to visually understand this concept of stabilizing in the knowing and how you can practice that. That's a skill. That's not something that you either have or don't have. It's not innate. That is a skill.
That's cultivated over a lifetime.
That's cultivated over consistent practice. And you have been such a teacher for me in this, because for many years I didn't have a practice, really. I was like, no, I'm always tapped into source. I am source. Everything is source, you know?
I remember I would mention an altar and you were like, my altar's Benjamin. And I was like, I'm concerned.
I mean, in that moment of my life, he was my altar for sure. And, you know, and he still is in a beautiful way. And also he is a human being, right? He is his own experience. And so I think understanding that what an altar really is, it's more than physical objects placed together in a pretty way with a candle lit. An altar is a representation of a connection to something that is greater than us.
Mm-hmm.
And coming to the altar, coming to that place of prayer, of commitment, of connection to great spirit, great mother, great father, great mystery. Show me what I cannot see.
Mm-hmm.
Let me live in the knowing that I am exactly where I'm supposed to be, that I'm taken care of, that I am guided, that I'm protected, even if I can't see the whole picture. This is just a little bit of like what my prayer looks like right now, you know, on a daily basis. And I will say that as my container has gotten bigger, as my responsibility has grown, as, you know, now I'm a co-founding steward of an organization with 20 employees and, you know, a physical location that's being built, that's being designed, that's being created. Like I have, you know, hundreds of people in my direct sphere of influence in my programs. Soon that will be thousands, you know, all of that is happening. And so my ability to be in my center and to be in my knowing needs to be like more on point than ever before. And my prayer practice has never been stronger because it has to be.
Yeah.
I cannot afford anymore to let myself fall off the tightrope. Like I've got to be so lasered into the one thing. Everything else around me can be complete chaos. But the one thing that needs to stay steady is that relationship to my knowing.
Yeah, 100%. So after we've gone through this arc of living from the outside in, cultivating a default from the inside out, genuinely getting to a point where you are looking everywhere, left, right, and center, and it's loving, deep, high integrity relationships, cultivating a life by design and anchoring in your default frequency of living from the inside out. You've now cultivated a container because this is the next step. Is once it becomes the default, then you share it. And you have, with your team, with your husband, meticulously designed a container that is a housing incubator to have meticulous curriculum that is guiding individuals to create a stabilization into this new way of operating. I believe in what you've cultivated with my whole heart and soul. I first and foremost have been in direct relation to the impact that you've individually made into my life. The individuals that you've called into work as allies alongside you are so high integrity, so walking in their truth and their path, that it is not a performance. Their life has become a result of a prayer to something greater than themselves. And then as individuals, sovereign beings that are walking a path, you've come together, roped your canoes together as you float down the lazy river and cultivated a space for other people to be able to go through their own activation in a space that probably you wish that you had when you started on your path and didn't have to go through 15, 20 years of unlearning to relearn, but actually action-packed with everything that supported you on your journey in a way of accountability and empowerment for the individual. So I'd love for you to share a little bit more about what the Allies program is, or what it is that you're cultivating with Becoming, and how you see this being the leading edge of the direction we're moving in as a collective.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think, like I said, every single time that I have gone into ceremonial spaces and really just dropped into that prayer of service, the message has been the same, which is our planet is going through a rapid transformation, evolutionary upgrade is occurring, whether we like it or we don't like it. And so we need safe spaces where people can go through that process in a way that they can emerge coming, like deeply knowing how to connect to themselves and connect to themselves. Like that might sound even a bit like, well, what does that even mean? Right. But on a more tangible level, like how to regulate their nervous system. Like at the core, that's what a lot of what we're talking about here. You take it out of the spiritual language and you put it into more of the physiological language. this is about becoming masters of your nervous system, because your nervous system is the very thing that interacts with life at all times, right? And if you are going into fight or flight responses without you having any control over that, without you having any say, then you're at the whim of external circumstances. That's you living a life from the outside in.
Which is not safe to the nervous system.
No.
It's survival mode. It is autoimmune diseases.
Yeah.
It is cancer. It is the body saying, no,
Yeah.
this isn't working for me, because being swayed by the outside in is so unpredictable, so on edge, so unsafe, because we're at the whim of a very unpredictable reality and a realm of projection.
Yeah, exactly. So if there's one thing that I think I care about more than anything, it's giving people the tools to become the masters of their own nervous system, meaning to be able to self-regulate, you know, in a way that is deeply empowering to them, no matter what the circumstances of their life are. Whether that's, you know, I want to start a conscious business, and I have all these gifts that I want to share with the world, but I don't know how to share my voice. I don't know how to be seen. I don't know how to charge for that. Well, if you look at that through a nervous system level perspective, let's say you get that call with that potential client and you get on the phone with that person and your nervous system's going into havoc, right? Because the stakes are so high. And so fight or flight comes on, your heart's racing, your mind's racing. Are you going to be able to actually calmly communicate the value of your service to that person in that moment if your nervous system is completely freaking out? Probably not. So it's really helpful to have this as a foundation, as a way, not just in business, but in all lives, right? In all of the parts of our lives, whether it's, you know, I need to have a conversation with my boyfriend or my girlfriend that might end the relationship. That's really scary. What happens to you on a nervous system level when you have to have that kind of conversation, right? I mean, we can be in fetal position. We can make ourselves sick with anxiety. And again, if you have the practices, the tools, the understandings of how to work with your internal reality and come into that deep place of knowing where you can trust that those conversations you're having, whether they're with potential clients or partners or family members or whatever, are coming from a deep place of your own truth, because you've cleared enough of the debris and enough of the distractions and bullshit out of the way to even be able to hear your own truth communicating with you. Then no matter what choice you make, no matter what decisions you make, no matter what path you choose, you have something that can never be taken away from you. And I think it's the only way that we can actually live in true empowerment, you know? True empowerment, like you said, you know, we can do the pleasure practices and blast our orgasms into the universe. We can do all that, and that's beautiful, and I recommend that. But I think the reality of where most people are at in this moment on the human journey is they're really trying to just find a deep state of inner calm and knowing and peace amidst a very confusing and disturbing reality. Yeah. So the Allies program is very much about, a safe space and a container that has been meticulously designed to walk people through that process. And I've reverse engineered a lot of my journey and a lot of my process to be able to distill it down into the most potent nuggets and tools that I can then share with people. And a big part of what I needed on my path was I needed real human interaction. I needed people reflecting back to me what they saw, reflecting my blind spots back to me. I needed a safe space to be able to process my emotions and share and be held in a container of people who understood me and who could hold me in that journey without judging me. So the community component is also really important. And the Allies program is not an easy program to run, like from a back-end perspective, because there's a lot of live calls, there's one-on-one coaching, there's big group calls, there's a ton of curriculum, even just designing that program and getting it ready to share with people took way, way longer than we expected, and required some people with decades of experience to come in and help us, because I actually had exhausted what I knew how to do on my own. But we did that, and we created something that was really profound and ultimately, no matter how profound you as the creator might think something is, until someone else goes through it and actually gives you the feedback that it was profound, it's all just theory, right? And so, the people that have gone through the program have mirrored back to us and reflected back to us that this program really is profound and powerful, and it changes lives. We've had people who their nervous system was so dysregulated in the beginning that they the idea of speaking in front of the group of 50 people, you know, was terrifying to them. And by the end, they were in their truth, owning their power, sharing poetry, you know, sharing their voice. We've had people who were like, one of the men that was in our program has been married for, you know, 30 years or something, like a long time. He's been in a relationship with his wife since they were 15 years old. And they have a kid together, and the relationship was really like on its last legs when he started the program. And by the end of the program, the relationship is blossoming because he's been able to get honest with where he was not showing up in intimacy and not showing up in his full heart and in his full devotion. And he's taken ownership for that. And now the relationship is coming back to life. You know, we had someone who was in an abusive relationship find the courage to walk away throughout the course of that program because the community and the tools empowered them to finally find, you know, the strength to do that. So when it starts to get real like that, when it's not just theory and it's not just, I'm manifesting my dream life, it's actually real life challenges that are being supported through this work, then it starts to feel a lot more grounded. And I think that's what I'm experiencing with this program right now is I've created something that is so much bigger than me. It really is. It's like there was a long time where a lot of my work was about me, and it was about, and there certainly me sharing my story is, you know, is in service, and I think me sharing authentically and has been valuable, but it's now at a point where it gets to be a lot less about me, and it gets to be a lot more about the actual people that are actually finding the courage to invest in themselves in a program like this financially, with their time, with their resources, with their, you know, precious life force energy, to actually do the freaking work, and to not just do it, you know, over the course of a weekend and a peak state experience, but to actually do it daily, to show
over a
up.
sustainable amount of time as well. Like this is the journey. This is, how many months is it?
We've expanded it to 7 months.
Yeah. So, and that is required, I think.
Yeah.
Like even just for example, when I see people go and work with plant medicines, for example, like it's a really powerful experience. Yeah. Really activating. And then know where to actually navigate life afterwards. Yeah. But to go on a journey of integration over 7 months of it being an ally and a counterpart to the way that we navigate life, as a genuine ally that is like a, you know, kind of like a pocket friend that has got you and your back, and accountability and curriculum and consistency and structure and magic. Yeah. Over 7 months is ultimately going to completely rewire the way that we operate in the world and the way that we perceive our challenges as well. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we expanded it to 7 months because the feedback we got was, originally it was 5 months, and the feedback we got was the content and the curriculum is so rich and robust that people wanted more time to really assimilate it. Spaciousness. And more spaciousness. And so we've expanded it, and we've added even more support calls, and it really is something that holds people in a beautiful way in a digital format. And creates community as well, connects people. You know, we have people, now that the program's ended, we have people organizing co-working sessions and online dance parties. Become family.
Yeah, because you go through the shit together, you know?
When you get witnessed in your sacred shit and you're loved for it, it creates such a solid foundation of integrity and friendship moving forward. Yeah. And they're the only friendships that I want to stick around with, are the ones that have witnessed me in my what the heck. Yeah. And the crunch and the decline and turning into complete mush from the caterpillar into the butterfly, and to have stuck around and be like, oh, and I love that too. I love that part of you as well. I'll bring it on. Let's go. I'm like, wow. Yeah. In your presence, I feel lovable. In your presence, I'm learning to love myself. Yeah. That's the power of these spaces. And I can't vouch enough for the integrity of each individual that is holding these spaces with you. Obviously between you and Benjamin, and also Daniela and Mona and Astrid and you know, everyone that's doing the back end, to everybody that's even filming the content, like every single fingerprint that is touching your program is with the utmost highest integrity, genuine desire to be of service, and feeling connected to something much greater than themselves, which is birthing a world that they wish for their children to live in. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you for that reflection. And I'm awed and humbled by the humans that have started to organize around this mission. And I would say one thing that that I've noticed when we have discovery calls where people who are interested in the program show up, we often see kind of a similar theme, which is like, I need to get rid of my doubt. I need to let go of my fear. I need to, XYZ. And I think that one of the biggest things that maybe differentiates what we do at Becoming from a lot of other modalities and ways, frameworks out there is we don't believe it's about getting rid of your doubt. We don't believe it's about letting go of your fear. We really believe it's about relating to your doubt and your fear in a way that deeply empowers you, where your doubt and your fear become your greatest allies. They become integrated aspects of you that you no longer have to be in conflict with, because the truth is you can never leave behind any part of you, ever.
It's like to say that some part of us is broken and it needs to be transcended.
Yeah.
But actually that in itself is still division.
Still division.
What would it look like to actually integrate it even deeper into the core of our being so that it no longer has the power over us, and the way that we navigate it is from a place of complete unconditional love?
Yeah.
Now that's power.
Yeah. Yeah.
So when is the launch of the next round?
So the launch is April 15th. And we're doing a really exciting 3-day challenge, which I highly recommend you sign up for if you're listening to this. The challenge is going to be all about unlocking success by upgrading your confidence and tapping into that unwavering certainty that we were talking about a lot on this podcast, the knowing, right? The all caps knowing. And so for 3 days, this is a free live masterclass kind of experience that you can sign up for and just participate in April 2nd through 4th. For all 3 days, I will be sharing like tangible tools. We'll be going into actual exercises. We'll be doing nervous system regulation exercises. We'll be doing challenges. Instead of shed the shame, we're going to share the shame. We're going to like really like bring
I love that.
Bring the love into these spaces that we've deemed unworthy, unacceptable, not spiritual enough. We're going to really like breathe some deep love into those spaces. And I'm really excited to share. I'm going to be coming fresh out of a retreat. So I'm going to be very connected to the medicine that, kickstarted all of this in the first place. And so, yeah, you can find the link to register for the 3-day challenge in the show notes. Please join us. It's going to be super special. We'll have a private Facebook group where we can engage,
That's amazing.
connect. Yeah.
And thank you for making it accessible to everybody, no matter where they're at in their financial bracket, just to start marinating in a certain frequency that can feel like home, which will push the first domino, or maybe, first domino of the day or the week, in a place of intention of knowing and understanding the energetics and what we wish to move into.
Yeah.
Just getting a taste is so good for us to align with that we're creating.
Yeah.
And so I love that it's accessible to everybody. And then, of course, then afterwards, if there's a resonance and this feels like something that I'm really, really willing to invest my time, my energy, my resources, and my complete devotion into 7-month journey, then there's also the steps. But it's a plug and play. You can choose where you want to tune into. Yeah. And it's inclusive as well, which I really appreciate. But the whole Becoming platform and everything that you're all creating has my heart in it, and I'm so honored to be a part of it and to be able to come in as a guest speaker and guest teacher, and also simultaneously be a constant student of the forever evolving curriculum that you and your entire team and Benjamin Bequer have all created for genuinely the healing of this planet and the collective.
Thanks, Mama. So we've had several of our graduating students share that your guest facilitation sessions were the most powerful for them and really unlocked such a deep devotion and prayer to something that sustains them and will sustain them long after this program ends. We're doing it. We've always been aligned through our mission to humanity, and from our humble beginnings, try to figure shit out to where we are today, and who knows where we'll be in 5-10 years and what will be possible. But I feel strongly that the next step of the journey is getting our feet in the earth, in the sand, being with the ocean, being with the palm trees, and making beauty together also in person, which is all emerging now with the project in Mexico. And so I'm excited to, include you in that birthing process, because
I'm there.
It's not meant to be done alone.
Okay, I'm already on the beach. My time's got to catch up with itself. But I am out there and wrangling in all of the humans that are ready to genuinely create heaven on earth and take the ownership of how we can create it within our own consciousness first. Yeah. Starting to operate beyond living from the outside in and moving to living from the inside out, and from that place, creating heaven on earth. Thank you, Azrya.
So it is.
Appreciate you. Thank you so much for everything that you're cultivating. Thank you to everyone in your team that has offered their devotional life and their attention and intention into building something that is not just going to benefit them, but is going to benefit generations to come and this community and this world at large. It is such a gift. And thank you so much.
I love you.
Alrighty, humans. Well, you heard it here first. All of the information that you will need for the 3-day challenge, the community aspect of that, which is completely free. And then, of course, also the Allies program that is now in enrollment. Go to the show notes in the links, the links in the show notes below, and you can find out a little bit more. My invitation for you is to move beyond the mind of the limitations, the fears, the resistance, and feel into your body if there was a resonance, if there is something that is pinging you, that is calling you to the altar of your own potential, and to start to listen to that and recognizing that no one can tell you what is right and wrong. We can open the door, and if you feel a resonance then, and your curiosity is aligned with that resonance, then I invite you to walk through. So to all of you listening at home, the invitation is to just be in a deeper level of inquiry around where in my life am I living from the outside in, from the shoulds, from the expectations of who I think I'm supposed to be, and into a resonance of what it is that lights you up from the inside out, and recognize that is your unique contribution to the collective. And it is so deeply needed, whether it's you singing your songs, writing your poetry, sharing on stages, or also just sitting in meditation and going into silence in nature. It is not about how it looks from societal's expectation of what success is, but how it feels in the entirety of your being, and how all 75 trillion cells in your body are responding to that which lights you up. If you resonated with today's episode, then please go ahead and share all over your social media platforms. Take a screenshot, tag myself, Azrya Bequer, and the Becoming platform, as well as the Deja Blu podcast and my own individual Instagram, Blue of Earth. And we can spread a message in a good way to empower people through media as medicine. And of course, until next week, sending you all the love. Blessings.